Hi, I'm Elizabeth Birch. Today we talk to Rosie O'Donnell right here in her home. From actress to entertainer and philanthropist to mother, we hear about the real Rosie O'Donnell. From her point of view, lots of stories. Stay right here for the Rosie O'Donnell interview.
I don't understand what gay people want from me.
But I remember being 16 and going, you know, I am totally gay.
It's not going to be easy. Get in the way, get in trouble, good trouble.
The baby Bushes have done a lot of damage, if you ask me.
Dr. King would have said that we don't have a right to discriminate against any human being.
Did you ever say to Ronald Reagan,
I may
this
have...
disease is going out of control?
I sent memos on AIDS.
Wake up and start marching on Washington, because if there ever was a time, it's now.
You finally said it, that you get special rights if you're straight and married.
Are you looking for a revolution?
We didn't wait for someone to tell us to do, we just did it.
Welcome to the show, Rosie.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
This is what I love when you talk about celebrity detox, and I think you've been incredibly articulate about it. But now you've just re-entered, you have a new show, you got great ratings with Riding the Bus with My Sister. What has it felt like to kind of re-enter the fray?
Well, it was very different than the last time because, you know, I've had 3 years sort of by myself with my family in my craft room doing nothing but listening to Joni Mitchell and Eminem and Cyndi Lauper. And I think if you want to know really the effects of fame in a concise and emotional manner, you should listen to Joni Mitchell first, Travelogue, double CD, and then listen to Eminem, the encore, because he talks very succinctly and very honestly about what it feels like to become so famous. And it's a hard thing to talk about because it's unrelatable to most human beings, and the people who are listening to you talk about it often have the feeling that you should just shut up. You know, oh, you're such a lucky life. What are you talking about, how hard it is? It's innately a difficult thing to talk about because people have the feeling that, you know, you have it so good, you don't deserve to have any kind of quote-unquote complaints. But it's not really complaints. Every artist takes their life and molds and remolds the clay that is the sum of their experiences. So when fame becomes a very substantive part of your clay, it's difficult to still mold it into something that other people can relate to.
Right.
So I knew that fame would never be something that I would, that kind of fame that I was at the show, that I knew when I started, should it be successful, the maximum amount of time I could do it was 5 years. And I actually did it for 6 years. But I had no illusions going in that I was going to do it for 20 years and going to be able to sustain that, that level of spinning, because that's what it's like. It's like you're spinning, you know.
But you're like spinning like in kind of rarefied air, right? And then you come down to earth.
Well, what
was it like year 1 versus year 3 of being away from it?
Well, being away from it, leaving, was pretty shocking, you know, because not to me, I knew that I had to do it, but to other people's response to it was pretty extreme. And then I had the horrific lawsuit in the middle of it, which I considered the integrity tax. You know, there's an exit fee for leaving superstardom, and mine was to the tune of a couple double-digit $1 million of this horrific, you know, lawsuit. Yeah. But I also felt, you know, when this corporate entity said to me, I will own you and your name and I will ruin you should you try to resist, right. I felt responsible and I felt like I had to resist because I had all the resources to do that. Imagine people who have no resources, who are trying to get health care covered for their kids by an insurance company that is now owned by some HMO conglomerate, Moranathon labyrinth that no one can get through, and their kid is suffering, and you know they don't have the means to fight against.
And they were unusually, really had the swords out with you.
Well, because they never thought.
So aggressive about it.
I think that the magazine lawsuit never would have happened had I not come out as a lesbian, number one. And number two, that the heterosexual male CEO at the time of that company thought for sure that I would fold my hand because I was a woman.
Right.
I don't think he ever met a woman like me in his life.
I've done huge cases, like big litigation, and boy, was that ever a ridiculous business decision for them.
Yes.
But they also were just particularly aggressive, and you won that suit. But I think I really hate litigation. I think it takes a tremendous personal toll.
Yes.
But, you were out there just scrapping and fighting every day, and then it smashed right up against an incredible product, an incredible, beautiful, creative product, Taboo. And just as it hit Broadway.
The thing is, if you're going to get sued by a corporate monolith, I highly recommend doing a Broadway show in the middle of it, because it took my mind off of it. And Kelly was very smart. She didn't allow me to read any of the negative press at the time. My publicist, Cindy Berger, who's a friend as well as, someone who I work with, they got together and came up with a plan to stick me in my art studio, turn off the computer, turn off the phone, not allow me to have contact to any media, and just to go in there and paint, because I think had I read some of the press during the time it was happening, I don't think I would have had the strength to fight on.
Right.
But I hadn't read it. So a year later, Kelly said, we've survived a year after the lawsuit, and here you go, honey, here's this press. And then I read through it, I was like, oh my God. I sort of couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Let's go back to Eminem, because Eminem, is a very, or at least was, I think he's much better understood now than perhaps in the early days. And Hillary, my partner, we used to have fights about it, and I'd throw stuff at the TV, and she'd be there dressing him to go on the Grammys, and she loved him and brilliant lyrics. And you feel the same way. And you feel like to take literal art or lyrics, that literally is just insane.
I think that Marshall Mathers is a genius.
Yeah.
I think he's almost prophetic.
Right.
Not pathetic, prophetic. Isn't that a word?
That's a big one.
Right, prophet-ish, right? So, the things that he's able to say, the way he has been able to take his life and his experience and his truth, which is really all art is to know your truth so purely and to present it without any kind of agenda. What he feels and says, what he's lived through, his shame, his self-loathing, his appreciation of the respect that he's gotten, much to his surprise, I think, in this industry. There's nothing that he won't express. If he feels it, he will write it. Right. And that's, I think, the only other artist who I think is like that, who lives their truth and their art as much as he does, is
Kanye West.
Well, Kanye West, I love.
Kanye West,
I think that guy that's a multi-million-dollar movie. Somebody needs to go make the Kanye West story.
Right.
That here's this guy who does all of the licks, all of the great rap groups
and
for
he was
pretty
wired?
much. Well, for rap royalty, Jay-Z, everybody, you name it, he's worked with them. He couldn't get his own deal.
Right.
He gets in a car wreck. He has his jaw wired shut.
Right.
And during the time when his jaw was wired shut, he started rapping and spitting through the wire.
Yeah.
He would rap. He couldn't understand what he was saying. He was rap.
Yeah.
And this man's belief and knowledge and connection with God is so, I think, admirable and visceral that you can feel it pulsing through the record.
Right.
I think that guy's astounding too. But who I was going to say, Marshall Mathers and Joni Mitchell.
Right.
I think are pretty much, in my opinion, some of the best living artists who are currently creating still. And Joni Mitchell recently, I read everything I can read about her. She gave up a child for adoption when she was very young in the 60s. And recently that woman in her 30s has come back and found her.
Wow.
And since that happened, she hasn't written a song.
Was that in Saskatchewan or?
It was when she was in Canada. Yeah, she's from Canada.
Yeah, she's from the province next to me. Yeah, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, and so she was recently on NPR, and she's saying that so what she's been doing is taking all of her original stuff, and reorchestrating it with, violins and huge orchestras, and, there's nothing I could ever say about fame, about my life, about feelings I've had that she hasn't already said better. So oftentimes in my life, when something happens, a Joni Mitchell quote will come up,
right,
or a Marshall Mathers quote will come up. Like in my head, during the lawsuit, it kept happening all the time. And then, in fact, I think I frightened them during the deposition, which is just a camera here, And at one point, the lawyer on their side, this guy Marty, oh, what a nebbish, he would ask me a question, and then he would turn and look at the camera. Right? So I'm looking at it, but the camera is, so he's looking at the monitor for my response. So I would turn and look at my camera and go, Marty, can you see me, Marty? I can see you. And the judge is like, Miss O'Donnell, don't address him. I go, well, he's staring to the left. And then I kept going, give him the old razzle-dazzle from Chicago, about lawsuits in general. I think they thought I was nuts. But I knew that it had to, I had to find some kind of levity or some sort of, moral message, a life lesson in this horrific thing. And, in retrospect to the real horrific things that happen to humans on a daily basis, it's a very minor bump.
Yeah, but this was, I don't want to dwell on it, but you were fighting in a way for your financial life. There were...
you felt that, and Kelly felt that, and God knows Nancy Grace on CNN felt that, because I want to get a
Well,
clip.
I know that you could, you had carved out this very important island, and I want to talk about your children in a moment, but you had this very kind of sacred time, and that lawsuit could have been a threat. You might have had to, go back and, well, anyway, you won.
But I never thought of it as that, just to let you know.
You never did. Okay.
Kelly did. Kelly was like, what if we lose? And money to me has never really been very relevant. And people hate when you say this, especially when you're rich. But I'm telling you the truth.
I believe it because I've gotten to know you.
Right.
But I'll tell you what's weird for me in observing you is I have never met anyone who did not come from money. We had no money growing up. And, kind of probably similar to you, maybe we had a little less. A lot of struggle and a lot of just emotional struggle for you. And then you grow up, you make it, and then you give it away. I don't know a single celebrity, and I don't even know if Paul Newman is at these numbers, but, I've ended up looking at them, doing some work with you. And you've given away at least $30 million in the last 8 years. That's unheard of, and nobody knows it. And that part drives me nuts. I'll tell you why. Because I ran a big organization, and it models behavior for others. And the other thing I love is you focused on children, all children, not just gay kids. You are about all children. And so that's remarkable. Where did that come from? That needing to pour out and heal and give back?
I don't know. I just knew as a kid there was power and fame. I knew if Barbra Streisand's mother was sick, when my mother was sick, I thought she could ask everyone to send $1. And it's a story I've told so much that I feel like Liza Minnelli going, Mama, but it's true. This is what happened to me. And I thought, gosh, if I was like Barbara, imagine what I could do to raise money for this cause or that cause or to help. And, as a kid, I got on the showbiz life raft.
Yeah.
And it took me to shore. It doesn't take everyone to shore. In fact, most people never get to shore on that life raft. But it took me to shore. And, I have never felt like a celebrity. I've always felt more like an audience member. So it's very odd to me to see people come over to me and respond to me the way that I would to, Florence Henderson. Like, when I met Florence Henderson, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. Sometimes she calls me and I'm like, it's Carol Brady. Hi. I can't get over it. To me, it's a huge thing because a lot of my reality was focused on television as a child. And, I think if you have a lot of money, you should give a lot of money. And I don't think that anyone needs as much as we consume in America. Right. It's pretty shocking, and Forbes has this list every year of the richest people in America. And I just think they should have a list of the people who've given away the most in America. Because why does it seem to be the people we clap as the ones who keep the most? It seems like we shouldn't be clapping for that. I always told my money people, if I'm ever on any one of those lists, you're fired. Right. Because I don't want to be on that list. If you're on that list, it means you haven't done enough in my mind.
That's right. And we've talked about, why can't they just add a column and add them together? So how much money you have, how much you've given away in the last year, and then add them together. So they can still do their little chessboard keeping score. Yeah. But a lot more charities would have a huge influx of money. I remember hearing Amy Tan say something, and she said she wasn't Chinese till she touched Chinese soil. The minute she arrived in China and touched soil, she felt Chinese. And I once heard you describe the first time you held Parker. And it reminds me of that same feeling. I heard you once say, it was like coming home. This was everything. Yeah. Tell us about when you first held Parker, and what was it about that little being that made you come alive in a way you hadn't understood?
Many of my friends, I'm 43, when I got Parker when I was 33, and many of my friends were still deciding whether or not they wanted to be a mom. That was never a concept for me. I always knew
Right.
I mean, there was never a moment, even when I was a little kid, where I thought, I wonder if I knew I would have children. I hoped I would have many, many, many children. And
right.
I don't know. My shrink will give you a million reasons that, my emotional growth was stunted at the death of my mother, and I'm able to access what it's like to feel 10. That's what she tells me.
Right.
I don't know. All I know
Yeah.
is, to me, they're the most precious and perfect forms that humans come in.
Yeah.
I would rather spend a day with 3-year-olds than 33-year-olds, any hands down. So, when I was matched, I went through the whole adoption process, and my the woman working with me said, well, we have a woman who's pregnant and she's due in about 6 weeks and she's going to have a girl. And I was like, wow, excellent, because I thought girls would be easy. And being that I was gay and also single, I thought, perfect, a girl. And she called me 3 days later and said, it's a boy. I was like, oh my God. But I thought, what am I going to do with a boy? How am I going to be able to, I don't know. It just struck me as hard to if you're going to choose, and I sort of chose, kind of. I said, just a girl, any kind, color, creed, and what happened was a boy. And I think you don't muscle God, you don't really. And so she came and brought him to the house and put him in my arms. And it was like when Dorothy stepped into Oz, and all of a sudden color seeped in. And my whole life, I had never felt the thing that people write operas about or write songs about, or I had never felt it in my body. I had felt it through performances, like watching Barbra Streisand on Funny Girl. I felt that life force but it never lived in me until he was handed to me. And I felt that bond as strong as an umbilical cord. I felt this connection to this little thing, and it changed my world. I never loved anyone or thing as deeply as I loved this boy, and as instantly. And it hasn't really changed, although now he's 10.
And you're just for the record and for the audience, you're a fantastic parent. I mean, I watch you and learn things. And there's 4 kids now. And there's Chelsea and Blake and Vivi. And you sometimes will just put Vivi on your shoulder and go cruise around malls, right?
Yeah, well, not on my shoulder, really. I put her in her stroller. We got a deluxe new stroller from Target.
Oh, okay.
And they put it together for us, one of the perks of fame. And there it is. But, I do. I love to do that. And people, if I don't talk, a lot of people don't know it's me. If I just go with no makeup, with a T-shirt in the mall, people kind of go, But until when I open my mouth, then they know. Yeah. Apparently, it's a distinctive sound. I hadn't been aware. But I do. I go to the mall. I do all the things. When I was with, League of Their Own, my first movie, and I got to be friends with Madonna, I saw how imprisoning fame could be. That here is this woman who had, dyed her hair black for the movie, and we'd be walking down the street and people would be like, your hair looked better blonde, like to her face. I remember being like, what? What are they saying to you? And I saw what it did to a person. And I remember one day I went to pick her up at her house and I didn't have gum. And I go, you want gum? She goes, yeah. And I pull into 7-Eleven and she's like, gonna go in? I go, yeah, watch, get out. And we went into 7-Eleven and we got bubble gum. We got back in the car. I said, look at that. You just went to 7-Eleven and the earth didn't fall apart. So, it all is about how you choose to live it. And, very few people have the kind of fame that Madonna has. I certainly did not. I mean, she has that Elvis type once a decade kind of mass adulation by the multitudes, universal and world renown. My kind of fame was very American focused. Our show didn't play anywhere besides the United States because of the rights and clearances of all the singing I did. And I never had that sex thing that she has where people sort of want her and treat her as she has a kind of fame that is almost impossible to navigate through. And I think she's done so beautifully.
And she's, even if someone would project on her about, become a stalker or something weird about her, she's reinvented herself so many times that there's a whole new variety of stalker.
I don't think she's reinvented herself. People say that about her, but I think she's just evolved.
Yeah. I
mean, she's evolved. And at what point, she already crossed the finish line. It's time to take off the sneakers and develop another muscle. It's like she's, I don't know. I don't think that it's as calculated as people think. It makes me laugh. I was reading recently on the internet about Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes and all these conspiracy theories that they're doing it for the movie, that they're both coming out in a movie. I'm like, does this how people really think celebrity works? That it's 1948 and Rock Hudson is sitting down making the plan about his life with, come on, I mean.
With Doris Day.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah. But let's clear up the Tom Cruise thing. Because there were people like all like pissy and weird because you were like, oh, I just love Tom Cruise.
I still
but
love
you
him.
just love Tom Cruise.
Listen,
he's so sweet. He's so beautiful.
I think it was very clear.
Yeah.
I never said I wanted to go down on the guy. I said I wanted him to mow my lawn, okay? And I meant the grass outside.
Yeah.
I just love him. There's something about him that gives me endorphins. Like, you look at him, first of all, physically, he is beautiful.
Yeah.
He stares at you. He looks right at you. You know, I'm like 5 seconds away from being a stalker. He could have very easily said, I'm never doing her show and let's get a restraining order. But he didn't, you know, and he sends me flowers on my birthday. And I just love him. And I love him maybe in a way that people think is sort of unrealistic, but I have had dinner with him. I know him as well as you, quote unquote, celebrity know, someone who's not your real life friend.
Right.
He's like a celebrity friend, but he's sort of...
Is he the tomboy part of you? That if you were a boy, you'd want to be him, or...
Who
Too
wouldn't?
weird. Yeah.
Totally weird. I never wanted to be a boy, but I mean, I just think there's something about him that is so unbelievably charismatic and charming.
Yeah.
And, you know, and real. I don't know. But, you know, people, oh, he's gay. I don't listen. I've been around the guy a lot. I get absolutely Zippo gay vibes from him.
Right.
If he is gay, he's the best actor in the free world. I don't think he's gay at all. I mean, I really don't. He's a grown, intelligent, multimillionaire man. I
also just hate that somehow everyone has to be gay.
I know.
Some people are actually not gay.
Exactly.
You know, they're really not gay.
Not me, but other people.
So tell me about when you were little and you're cruising around. I think you were in high school and you go, I'm gay.
Oh, in my car?
Yeah, what happened?
I was in the Plymouth Volare, which my father bought from the money that he found stashed in my grandmother's room. She had gotten her Social Security checks for the 20 years she lived with us, and when she was hospitalized, he went through, you know, to try to clean up, and he found like $16,000, which at the time was more money than, you know, we knew what to do with. So we got a Plymouth Volare with an AM radio and no air conditioning. Thanks, Dad. But I remember being 16, getting my license and driving around and going, you know, I am totally gay. I think I am gay. I am a gay person. Like, I wanted to say it out loud to see how it would feel to say it out loud.
Yeah.
And I did. It wasn't like a big, you know, epiphany or anything.
What was the precipitating event? Did you have crushes? Did you?
Well, I think I was probably madly in love with Mary Rose, but I didn't know it. Was my friend from high school who had a boyfriend and is totally not gay and is married with 4 kids, and I went to Disney World with her 2 years ago. But anyway, I think I was in love with her. And like, I would always think about her and, you know, I just loved her. I still do. I think she's fabulous. Yeah. And I had a boyfriend at the time, quote unquote, which means that we, you know, made out by the library in Comac across from the Friendlies. And I remember going, this cannot be what they write songs about. It can't be this. There is no fireworks. There's no Love American style fireworks in my head. Yeah. You know, there was no, oh my God, if only you can move closer, you know. Was there any famous people that you had big crushes on? Did you have, was the Barbra Streisand stuff, Bette Midler stuff, different category? Totally. Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't have, I mean, I was a non-sexualized child and teen. Right. It wasn't until I was in college that I started to be, you know, sexually curious even. Yeah. So I wasn't one of those kids like, you know, and they'll all get mad, so I won't say their names, but there were about 8 of us girls in school who were friends, and I would drive. Usually, I was the designated driver, and we'd go to like OBI, which was a dance club out in Long Island. Yeah. And I'd bring a roll of quarters, and I'd get a beer, and all the girls would go meet guys and make out on the beach. And at about 12:30, I'd go out to the dock and I'd go, the O'Donnell car is leaving! And all these girls would get, you know, sticks out of their hair, wiping stuff from cleaning, putting their clothes on. And I was the designated driver. And I remember in the car going, I cannot believe you are such tramps. You know, like, to me, I thought they were tramps. But they weren't. They were just, you know, healthy, sexually curious young women. I was in a gang like that. Like, I had my own gang. And it was like, I love them. And I always think I peaked at 12, you know, that it was the moment. And then I started to lose them to boys. Did you like feel like that they were disappearing? We still have. Me and Jeannie and Jackie just did a sleepover at the Marriott in Long Island for Jeannie's 43rd birthday. The 3 of us still are, you know, that's good. The Bobbsey twins walking around. And we still, you know, we still have that. I mean, they're my closest friends, truthfully, Jeannie and Jackie. Now, I saw Jackie on your blog. Yeah, and Jeannie too. Is Weenie. I call her Weenie. Oh, that was Weenie. Okay, got it. Now, you know why I call her Weenie?
Why?
Because when we were 16 and they put up the Comac multiplex,
Yeah.
we would drive by at lunch and she would roll down the window and scream to all the construction workers, "Penis!" And I was like, "Teeny weeny!" So it was so embarrassing. So that's how she got her name. She screamed penis at the construction workers.
That's funny.
But sorry, what was your question?
Well, talk about, is the blog, well, first of all, let's talk about your painting, because I love your painting. I mean, and you do collage too, but I'm kind of crazy about the painting.
Well, thank you.
And you've been doing it kind of nonstop since you left the show. What's that about? Does it stir stuff up? Can you purge it then? Is it a healing thing? Is it to just busy yourself and lose yourself in something as you shed away that the last part of your life about the show? And...
Well, you know, and I'm not comparing myself to these people by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying as an artist, which, you know, you hope to one day consider yourself. If you are one, you never think you're a real one. That's how you know if you're one, if you think, if only one day I could be one. But Tennessee Williams, you know, he went away to Mexico after, and he couldn't write after the Glass Menagerie. He couldn't write anything. And he wrote a whole wonderful essay about what happened to him after the success. And Joni Mitchell, at the height of her career, went back to Canada and lived in a bungalow with no electricity for a year. And I think at some point you lose yourself, and that initial spark that made you want to create gets somehow covered over by the success of your creation, you know? And, you know, Joni Mitchell says, they toss around your latest golden egg, the speculation, who's to know? Will the next one in the nest glitter for them so? So she's talking about, will what you do next ever compare to the one that they loved before? And every artist struggles with that, I think. And that show was a pretty big thing to kind of get over in a way artistically. I mean, that kind of success and doesn't happen. It happens very rarely. And I was extremely grateful, but I also knew that for me, the art part was becoming less and less real. And the showbiz part was becoming more and more all anyone wanted to talk about, and I had to get the balance back, the wax on, wax off. So I had written a book, and it angered some in my family, and I wanted to do it, express myself without words, so that it could be open for interpretation, so that no sibling could be angry at a secret that I shared with too many people. And
you mean your book, Find Me?
Yeah.
That was fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's hard for siblings of famous people, especially people who don't have parents. You know, we're 5 siblings with no parents. And I think it's very difficult when one of the 5 becomes sort of super famous and the other 4 are kind of in the wake of that, and they have to adjust and readjust their life to the fact that, you know, there's a speedboat who's now ripping right through them. And I think it had an effect on everyone. And I was conscious of that, and I didn't want to do more damage, yet I wanted to be true to myself. And so painting seemed to me to be the best way to share my feelings without giving away things that I was not the sole owner of.
So now I feel like what you're doing on your blog is sort of painting with words. And you got compared to Faulkner. I mean, they did say it's either this amazing new invention of writing or she's imitating Faulkner or something like that.
You know, E.E. Cummings, and I had to Google them both.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not very educated, is what I have to tell you. I read a lot of books, but I didn't get good grades in school. You know, I mean, I am self-educated, and I always feel inferior to those who went to good colleges and have degrees. And like when I play Scrabble with you or Carolyn Strauss, you have to spot me 100 points because, you know, and I feel that I should be able to spell things the way they make sense in my head.
Yeah.
And so what happened was you and a bunch of people said, why don't you do a blog? Because a lot of my friends were getting mad. I kept sending them these haiku sort of little thoughts on life or a movie. And I was like, all right, I'll try it. And I did one on Blakey when he broke his arm, and then I couldn't find the blog for 2 months. And then I found it again. And, you know, I'm not trying to copy anyone. I'm just trying to put out there what's inside of me. And, you know, I'm not even really trying to be mean or stir it up. But
I sort of love it because I thought what it could be, and I think maybe what it is, it's also a way for you to keep in touch. And it's like the equivalent in a way of walking around a mall because it's a live thing. And it's also a great way to sort of get emotions out. And even when you're angry at things in the world, and you just can find your community. You know?
Well, right. And I feel that there are times that I wish I had a platform to say the things that I feel need to be said. on television, corporately owned right now, sadly. All the news organizations are corporately owned. In order to find out what's really going on in our country, you have to watch the BBC News. That's kind of sad. You know, so we're getting the media that the government wants you to see. Remember in third grade, you were taught about how horrible Russia was, that there were only 2 channels and the government controlled what was on both of them. Guess what?
Here we are.
Here we are.
That's
that you can't stand up and say that you are opposed to the administration and its policies without worrying that you're going to lose your job, even if you're a 30-year veteran of CBS like Dan Rather. I mean, it's an absurd kind of time that we live in where people are afraid. And
they've turned patriotism on its head and made it, you know, a slander. You know,
and that if you're against this war, you're somehow against the warriors
troops.
that are fighting it. What, are you kidding me? I don't think anyone in George Bush's neighborhood, where he grew up on Millionaire Row in Texas, ever came home from Vietnam with a helmet with a bullet hole in it.
None of these guys
have gone to war.
Across
the street, Charlie Cossack, my neighbor, went to and came home from Vietnam a different man. And my mother hung a sheet outside of our window that she painted with red paint, "Welcome Home, Charlie." And she baked him a steak and a potato, and we brought it over there. And I remember it viscerally. I can remember the effect that war had and still has on so many. And Walter Reed Hospital is filled to capacity right now. Are we seeing the mangled, burned bodies of America's children coming home? No, we're not seeing it. And that's what stopped Vietnam. People were so outraged by free media. By the free press in America.
Dan Rather.
Exactly.
Showed us
Vietnam. And what's happening now? You have to have a blog and go link to some site of a guy who's afraid the government's going to shut him down because they're showing the triple amputees who are 22 years old. You know what the statistics are for amputees post-war? Tragic. And we've just created another generation of them. And it's an unjustified war. The whole entire thing was planned in advance. Please, like before we go to Iran and Syria, please, America, let's all get together, wake up, and start marching on Washington. Because if there ever was a time, it's now.
That's right. All right, we're gonna.
She said ranting. Go.
I got a couple of things still. The biggest connection for me and why I really wanted to work with you is when I saw photos of Rosie's Broadway kids. So I saw the kids, I heard the music, I saw you with the children, and I felt this full circle of healing. So will you talk a little bit about, let me just explain, Rosie Broadway Kids takes 5th graders for a lot of Manhattan in the poorest schools in the city and teaches them musical theater. But it's not really about musical theater, it's about leadership. It's about working in a group, but finding yourself. It's about math. It's about really stimulating parts of the brain that might never get addressed. And it's taking those kids that maybe are outside of the therapeutic range of education and giving them hope and life. And then the program goes on and on. There's a leadership institute. And so how did you come to this to understand how I love this program? Well,
it is a great program, and I'm really proud of it. And, you know, in 1996, I founded the For All Kids Foundation, and what it was basically a clearinghouse for existing nonprofits that dealt with at-risk children and women. So if you have a daycare center and you need funding to fulfill, you know, or make it bigger, you would apply for a grant, and then we would check out all of your financials and make sure you were on the up and up and fund that. Well, as great a program as that was, and as many as we've opened, and we opened many daycare centers across the country, what happened was I wanted to feel the effect of what I wanted to give. I wanted to feel it more than I was able to by just anonymously writing checks or you know, whatever. I wanted to see their faces and look in their eyes. And, you know, it made me go back into the life raft because the thing about, you know, you're on the QE2, picture this, and you're me, and you look overboard. Now, it's, mind you, there's antiques in every room, but you look overboard and you see a sea of little kids in swimmies, and some of them are deflating. And it's impossible for me not to go stop the ship, pick them all up and put them all on, but it's unrealistic. I'm one person, I can't do it. So what can you do? So this is one little program that we started, and, you know, to get to see the faces of these kids, to get to see when they actually get to sit in a Broadway seat, and they've never in their lives been inside a theater. And a little boy said to me, "Where do we sit, Rosie?" I said, "How about the empty seats, Jorge?" And he said, You mean in the velvet? And he couldn't believe he got to sit in the velvet. And it almost made me cry when he said that. I thought, oh my God. You know, and theater has become a little bit of an elitist art form, and I wish there was a way to give it back to kids the way it was given to me. You know, theater was an integral part of my childhood, and $10 standing room was how I became interested in becoming a performer. So this program, I think, does an amazing job, and we modeled it after Jacques D'Amboise' dance program, and the woman we stole from Jacques D'Amboise, Lori Klinger.
Yeah.
We stole her from Jacques D'Amboise' program, and she set this one up, and you know, I'm very, very proud of it.
Yeah.
But I hope eventually to be able to work very hard to change the foster care program in America, because it is in dire need of help. There are 500,000 kids in foster care in America. There are 141,000 licensed foster homes. That's 350,000 children who will go through their childhood never having a place to call home, never having a parent. And the system is not set up for the kind of problems that we're facing today in our society. It needs to be completely overhauled, and it needs to be done as soon as possible, because these kids age out of the system and go right into welfare and/or prison.
That's right.
And what kind of a legacy are we leading, that the state that raises children are killed in their care more often than they're saved?
How long do you think it will take before Florida realizes that it has a large stain on its soul for how they've treated gay parents?
You know, the two states that have the most horrible foster care programs in the country are both Bush states, Texas and Florida. The baby Bushes have done a lot of damage, if you ask me. You know, in the state of Texas, you're allowed to stop health care for patients who don't have insurance. Yet in Florida, Terry Schiavo is kept alive and in the courts for 15 years. Explain that to me.
Right.
There's no, you know, another Joni Mitchell line, all liberty is laced with borderlines. You know, there's no equality for the rich and the poor in this country. There really isn't.
Right.
And the basic health care not provided to America's citizens as we try to sell democracy in the Mideast. You know, be careful, because democracy thrives only with dissent. And that is what's needed and what we're being denied on a daily basis by the corporately owned news media. And I feel that if I can be a voice of dissent for the people who don't have one, then that is a definite fair payback for all the benefits that I have, you know, been given as a result of being able to juggle 14 balls in an amusing way on television for 6 years.
You're going to be on Queer as Folk soon.
Yes.
And that, you really admire that show.
You know, I love that show. And where we lived in Manhattan, we didn't get it the first 2 seasons. And then my show went off the air, and we moved up here, and we got it. And then Kelly went and got the DVDs of the first few seasons, and she watched it on a flight. She came home, she's like, you're gonna love this show. So I started watching it when Justin was already in his 3rd season. But when I watched the first one afterwards, I understood what people were saying, because he looked like a baby, you know, when the show first premiered. But I think that show has been groundbreaking in many ways. I think it's the first show that lets the lives of gay men and women be seen fully, as fully, you know, developed adults with sexuality and sexual behavior and commitments and family, and how gay people sort of make their own families often when their families of origin can't really find a place for them. And I think it's a wonderful show. And I went to do the bus movie, and all of the crew were the crew from that show, and I kept going, oh my God, tell me about Justin, tell me about Brian, and then the wardrobe girl, Rachel, wrote me and said, will you do it, the executive producer? I said, yes, I would. Can I fall in love with Sharon Gless, possibly, which is every lesbian's dream since 1978. So she said, you know, yes, and the Debbie Novotny character is, you know, married on the show, but they found a way to make it work, that I was this abused wife, and my husband was coming after me, and she sort of saved me, and I kind of fall for her, and it's beautiful.
I saw one little moment, like a little tease, and you say, I love you. And it's so desperate, and it's so heart-wrenching.
And it was hard to do, and I came home and I was crying. I was like, Kelly, I go, it felt weird. I was looking at this beautiful woman and telling her I loved her and kissing her, and it wasn't you. And, you know, I don't know how actors do it. I think they're lying, because I've never done a sex movie scene. I mean, even though it was a kissing scene, but it still was very intimate, and, you know, It felt real, of course, and it felt. And I am in love with Sharon Glass, and Kelly knows, and it's okay, and so does Sharon's husband, and he's okay with it. So it all worked out. But she's as charming and wonderful as I imagined that she would be. I have always loved her since she was on that show, Christine Cagney, exactly, and. Rosie O'Neill, and I mean, she's Emmy Award winning. She's an amazing actress.
And she's beautiful.
Beautiful, I know.
I mean, in that character,
well, they have tried to make her
idea.
frumpy, and they put a big wig on her. But she's gorgeous, and she's fit, and she's stunning. She really is. And I came home and I was crying, and Kelly was so cute. She's like, well, honey, it's very nice that you care so much, and you're not going to do another one of those. I'm like, I know. But I'm not the kind of, I'm not an affairer. A lot of people are affairers. I'm not an affairer.
Oh, you are not.
I know.
No.
I don't enjoy the affair thing.
No.
I feel it's not good.
Now, could you have ever imagined a healthier girlfriend? You have the most sane, wise, balanced. She is among the wisest people I have ever met in my life.
Listen, she's very enjoyable. I told her that I don't want her to do any more TV because I'm afraid it'll go to her head and she'll see that she could do so much better than me. She'll run screaming from the relationship. No, but
she doesn't.
You know
like
what?
That.
Parker said to me when he fell in love with this girl in his class, he thinks, and he said to me, Mommy, it's like there's a magnet in my hand and a magnet in her hand, and they just go together. He said, is that love? And I said, that's love. Oh. And he said, is that what happened with Mommy Kelly? And I said, well, because we were doing a big puzzle. I said, when you think your puzzle fits and it doesn't, but you try to push it and it doesn't and then you get the right piece and it just falls right in. I said, that's what Kelly is, Mommy's puzzle piece, and she's mine, Yeah. And that's what it feels like. And I remember when we first sort of came out and told everybody, about our relationship and that I was gay, and I said that this would be my life partner. The gay boards all over the internet were, oh, please, I sense a car wreck. Don't ever say forever. Don't. As if gay people cannot aspire to the same goal as straight people, as if you can't say, I've committed my life to someone publicly without it coming back to haunt you later. Oh, but what if you leave her and then you would have said, I'm not going to leave her. Well, what if she leaves you? How about she's not going to do that? Well, how could you know? I don't think anyone would ever say that to straight people who got married.
Exactly.
I don't think anybody would ever come over and go, that man you just married who you're claiming to love for the rest of your life, that's kind of dangerous. What if you don't like him in a few years? But within the gay community, we're so not held to any standard of commitment, and young gay kids growing up don't have anything to look for to say, well, we're trying for forever, people. That's what we promised in front of God and friends and country.
Right.
We're promising forever. A forever family is what we made. And that's what we're, and it's work. I'm
and
not
of course
saying...
you did that on the steps in San Francisco.
Yes.
I mean, you made that big journey and...
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I had the same experience. I am in love with Hillary. I'm with her forever. We're having a little fight right now, but, but we're... And when I said that in a group of all gay leaders from all the they all snickered.
I know.
I was like...
I know,
no, I mean,
it was very surprising. I know,
it
was surprising to me, too. I thought that the gay people, or the gay community in general, as if there really is one, but there isn't. There's just anonymous boards where anyone can post anything. But if there actually was, like, a big, meeting, we should all get together and go, okay, number one, let's stop being mean to each other.
Exactly.
Number one. Number two, let's stop the who's gayer contest.
Right.
Because it always seems like who's gayer than who, or who's not politically correct gay, or who's doing this,
Right.
And, I'm just as much guilty as anyone else because, believe me, I look through the Post and the Daily News every day for a Portia and Ellen photo. It's like I live for it. I'm like, any in there today,
But you don't know Ellen.
I don't know Ellen, and
no,
we're
you
not
don't
friends.
know, and you're not
there
friends.
You go.
Listen, last thing. Well, we should talk about the L word.
Okay.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it so much that I can't be on it.
Really? Well, don't say that because Eileen's coming after you. Eileen's shaking.
No, it would ruin it for me.
Yeah.
But would she let me direct it, maybe? Maybe I could direct one. Maybe. I don't know if I'd be good enough. But the reason that I knew Queer as Folk was in its last season.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be on it before it went away because I feel like it's a show that hadn't gotten what it deserved.
Right.
And that it arrived with a little bit of media and people sort of criticizing it and turning a blind eye to it. And, frankly, I think it's extraordinary and it's groundbreaking for gay people everywhere. I love that show. Right. And then the L word, I think, is the, second cousin of Queer as Folk. And I still love that too.
Now,
Jennifer Beals.
Tell me about, was it sexier first season or second season for you?
Sexier?
Well, for
See,
me,
I don't know
the
that I rate
first
things by
season-
sexy. Was it sex you're looking for on that show?
Well, I think it's flipped an entire switch in the nation,
Yeah.
and the lights have all come on in lesbian homes all over America.
Really?
I think everyone's having sex again.
Because of that show?
Yeah.
Kind of
But
exciting.
I think the first season had I think the second season maybe has more complexity.
Well, you know what? The first season, I think everybody was going, oh, please, no group of friends are all that good looking, as if there really is a Pine Valley somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And Erica Kane's been married 45 times. I mean,
Right.
you have to suspend. It's not a documentary, people. So
Yeah.
I think the first season, everybody was trying to sort of figure out who was who. But I love that, like, Tina is getting back with Bet, and they've got to get rid of that British woman. I'm sure she's very lovely in real life, but get her off my show. Also, the scary boy who lives in the back with the video cameras.
Gone.
Not good for me.
Yeah.
Also, I love Alice and Dana together. I
Yeah.
hope they don't break up, but they will, because it doesn't usually work. Friends first, my opinion.
Although Shane's acting with the
Amazing.
betrayal with the guy in the back.
Best scene to me on that show ever, her in the confessional.
Yeah.
And how they shot it, you could hardly see her eyes. That girl, I think, is an amazing actress. Catherine
She's
Mowing, I think her name is.
very good,
Although her haircut, no, I'm not one to talk. Remember that crazy little lesbian haircut I had? But her haircut is like Sally Hershberger on a day that she didn't care. Because it's too crazy. Give that girl a nice haircut.
She's
like
very
Jenny.
beautiful.
She's beautiful,
I
I
love
think.
Jenny. I think Jenny's
that Carmen.
terrific.
Hottie.
I know. She's absolutely gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Not my thing, but I loved Marina.
Well, I'm
I
not
loved
saying that you
Marina.
have to go out with any one of them.
I know, but this is, what do you think? It's all about, is it exciting? I miss Marina.
You do?
Yeah, but
Do you remember when Bet had the affair and then her and Tina had the
Yeah.
crazy sex? Look at all the
Yeah.
male producers going, what the hell are they talking about? But then Kelly and I were sleeping because it's on at 10 o'clock. We're in bed. We have 4 kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, honey, let's try to do that. Okay, pretend like you had an affair and then I'll pretend to punch you. And she's like, it's 11 o'clock. Go to bed. I'm like, no, come on. Let's just try it. It's a fun show.
that
I think
was
it's
a
really
kind of
fun.
weird scene.
It was,
Yeah, it
listen,
was
there's
so
some interesting,
intense.
I like it. And the whole Jennifer Beals should be made an honorary lesbian because she's so good.
So great. And so nice and so smart. She's a Yaley. She's a Yaley.
I did a movie with her.
You did?
I did.
When?
I wish I could remember
What was
the
the
name.
name of it?
This is how pathetic it is when you're 43. It was called Twilight of the Golds.
Oh.
And she was in it with Brandon Fraser. And I was the friend store clerk. I
That's
had 2 scenes with her. I
said
love Lolita Davidovich. Can you say that name 3 times quick? Lolita Davidovich as the girlfriend was great.
Yeah.
Remember her in that
Yeah,
movie
yeah, yeah,
Blaze?
yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so you said recently you could not conceive of ever, at the time,
Yeah.
being open and out as a lesbian and have that show. That
See, I
that
don't
would
know
have
if that's the good way to articulate it, but when I thought back about having said that recently, like part of it feels like me trying to justify myself, and I don't want it to come off as that.
No,
because
yeah.
I just want to say that there were people who were bold and brave way before me, and those women in the women category, it's KD and Melissa and Ellen, and those are the ones who get the credit, man. They, Lily, they kicked down doors that I walked through easily, but in my life, personally. The hardest thing was being a kid.
Yeah.
When I got to 16, I was pretty much safe. Figuring out I was gay was not a big challenge for me.
Right.
I didn't go through, I didn't have a parent eyes to look at who would disown me. I didn't risk alienation of, these I didn't have the parental figure. So
Right.
it wasn't what it is for most gay people. All my life, I felt if I could have a voice, I would want to have a voice for children who are not protected the way they need to be in their
Right.
own homes.
Right.
That, to me, was a much bigger mountain than the gay one. However, having said that, I do sort of wish, in some ways, that I was braver. I think I could have been braver, but it didn't feel like it was relevant or the right time.
Yeah.
And my education, really, about gay issues in America started after I came out.
I know.
Because I went
Yeah.
to the HRC thing. I'm like, what is this? Is this Jimmy Carter's foundation? They're like, no, this is the gay thing. I'm like, what gay thing? I knew Betty DeGeneres did something with it, but I don't know. I feel as though my introduction to more of mainstream gay America, or the struggles that people have as being gay in America, only started after I came out. And I think that I can claim, homophobic, I don't know, some sort of internalized homophobia. I'm not really sure why, but it just didn't seem that relevant to me.
Yeah, I always, you know, I've just gotten to know you over the last several months, and, you know, I haven't figured out how to express it, but you're obviously gay, but it's not really your calling, you know, you're not that gay. Like, for me, it is about children and all that. It's not, and I have always been the one to say, you know, people have to kind of come to this stuff on their own. If you knew a little kid, a little Rosie, say 12 or 14, whatever, what do you say to young people? What's your advice today? Better to just kind of...
You mean young people who are gay?
Yeah.
You see, again, you know, I was like 16, 17,
Yeah.
so, you know, I don't know what you'd say to a 12-year-old. I know that I have a free and open dialogue with my own children and the friends of my children who have questions that are appropriate for 10-year-olds.
But what do you say about, you know, what would you say to a young person about stay in the closet or not?
Well, I don't know that the closet is such an accurate metaphor anymore because, you know, I was out in the world of show business.
Sure.
Everyone knew. I would go to the Emmy Awards and sit next to Kelly.
Yeah.
When my hand was injured and I said, and to Kelly for sleeping on the floor of ICU, I love you. I don't know how much more out you could be, you know, but people were writing, who's the boy Kelly? And when did she start dating him? I was like,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I think if you had taken a poll in Ohio, a lot of the mall moms would not have known. I mean,
Although
I think
Warner Brothers did focus groups, and they told me that a vast majority of the viewers did know or suspect.
Really? That's interesting.
I don't know. When I took the job at Warner Brothers, I said to them, you know that I'm gay, and I don't imagine that I'll ever come out and say it because it doesn't seem to be the cause celeb for me. However, I want you to know that I'm never going to say I'm not if I'm asked. And from the get-go, they were okay with that and on board with that. So, you know, they deserve credit, I think, in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I would say to a little kid, you know, is what I would say to every little kid is
or
that,
say a young adult.
you know, make sure you're safe is the
Yeah.
number one thing. You know, not everybody can be a rebel rouser. Not everyone can be Larry Kramer. Not everyone can stand up and take all the shots. That, you know, there are some, you know, crazy people out there. So number one is to make sure you're safe. And find an adult that you can trust, that it can be safe with. And how do you do that? I don't know. I was very lucky because I had adults in my life who were there for me in a consistent and parental way who were not related to me in any capacity.
A very special teacher.
And Jackie's mother.
Yeah.
She was, you know, virtually my mother from the time my mother died. I ate dinner over there all the time. You know, she took me to get my first bra. Jackie's mother, and, you know, Pat took me to the gynecologist when I was 15, and, you know, I mean, there were
enough people
there were
in the
mothers,
neighborhood.
there were mothers then who took over, you know, and changed my life.
Well, listen, Rosie, I can't tell you what a thrill it is. It's just a thrill.
Well, you know,
to
you're even
have
better
you.
than Charlie Rose. You're calm, you're prepared, you have a nice suit on. If only your producers would stop coughing.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you, and I just like to say, I'm here.
Today we heard from Rosie O'Donnell, in her words, from every part of her life. I don't think it could be easy to be a celebrity in our community, especially when we have such high standards and often high standards for excellence. Rosie spoke to us in a fresh and new way. Join us again next time on Here.